There's a curious paradox in meditation. The more you try to meditate, the harder it becomes. The more you strive to silence the mind, the louder it grows. It's like attempting to fall asleep by sheer willpower. The more you chase inner peace, the more it slips through your fingers. Perhaps you've already felt this, that sense of failure when you close your eyes. Try to breathe deeply, and instead of quietness, you find a tumult of thoughts. The shopping list, the unresolved conversation, the project you forgot to finish. And then comes that inner voice. I'm terrible at this. My mind is a disaster. Everyone can meditate except me. But there's an uncomfortable truth that most meditation teachers don't tell you. You're not failing. You're just trying too hard. And that effort, that trying so forcefully, is exactly what's creating the obstacle. The philosopher Alan Watts, who spent decades translating Eastern wisdom for the Western mind, had a name for this: the law of reversed effort. He recognized something fundamental about human nature. Whenever we try to force a state of being, we paradoxically reinforce its absence. It's like chasing a butterfly. The more frantically you pursue it, the more swiftly it eludes you. But when you stand still and quiet, it might just alight on your shoulder. This isn't just a poetic metaphor. It's a precise description of what actually happens when you try to meditate. Meditation isn't a skill you acquire through striving, nor a mental muscle you strengthen through disciplined effort. At its core, meditation is the opposite of doing. It's a process of radical undoing, of profound letting go, of stopping all deliberate effort. And here's the problem. We, especially in the West, have been conditioned since childhood to believe that effort is the key to everything. You want good grades? Study harder. You want to be fit? Train harder. You want success? Work harder. More effort, more achievement. That's the formula we've been taught. So when we sit down to meditate, we bring this same mentality. We apply the same formula. Let's meditate hard. Let's concentrate intensely. Let's master the mind through willpower. And it simply doesn't work, because you can't force quietness. You can't conquer inner peace. You can't make the mind stop thinking by trying to make it stop. It's like trying to smooth the waves of the ocean with your hands. The more you stir the water, the more agitated it becomes. Stillness only comes when you stop stirring, when you withdraw and let the water settle on its own. Alan Watts used to say that we're like people trying to bite our own teeth, or like an eye trying to see itself, or a knife trying to cut its own handle. There's a fundamental impossibility in trying to control the mind, using the mind itself. It's like trying to put out fire with fire. And yet, that's exactly what we do. We sit in meditation and start an internal war. The mind thinks. We say, no, stop thinking. And who's saying that? The mind itself. So now we have two mental processes happening. The original thought, and the thought that's trying to stop the original thought. It's like having two people shouting instead of one. Watts had a brilliant way of describing this. He said that trying to control the mind is like trying to play a piano by hitting it with a hammer. You're using the wrong tool for the wrong task. The piano wasn't made to be hammered. It was made to be played with a gentle, sensitive, receptive touch. And the mind works the same way. It wasn't designed to be controlled, dominated, or forced into submission. It was designed to flow, to move naturally, like a river finding its own path between the stones. When you try to force the river in a specific direction, you create resistance. The water pushes back. But when you simply watch the river, when you let it follow its natural course, there's an ease, a grace to it. This is the essence of what Watts was trying to teach us. That there's a fundamental difference between doing and allowing, between forcing and accepting, between trying and being, and meditation belongs to the second group. It's not something you do. It's something that happens when you stop doing. But here's the big problem. How do you stop trying? Because even stopping trying is a form of trying. It's like telling someone, don't think of a pink elephant. The first thing they do is think of a pink elephant. Similarly, when you try to stop trying, you're still trying. And it's at this point that most people give up. They conclude that meditation simply isn't for them, that they weren't born with the gene for mental quietness, that their minds are too noisy, too agitated, too Western for this ancient Eastern practice. But this conclusion is wrong, because you're not failing at meditation. You're just failing at trying to meditate. And failing at trying is, in fact, the first step towards success. Because when you recognize that effort doesn't work, when you see clearly that trying is creating the problem, something begins to change. You begin to relax, not because you decided to relax, but because you stop tensing up. You stop fighting against thoughts. Stop judging yourself for having thoughts. Stop making meditation one more task, one more thing you need to conquer, one more area of life where you can fail. And in that space, in that surrender, something extraordinary can emerge. Not something you create, but something that was already there, waiting for you to stop interfering. Like the stillness that already exists at the bottom of the ocean, undisturbed by the surface waves. Or like the blue sky that's always there, even when covered by clouds. Not something you create, but something that was already there, waiting for you to stop interfering. Like the stillness that already exists at the bottom of the ocean, undisturbed by the surface waves. Or like the blue sky that's always there, even when covered by clouds. Alan Watts had a way of describing this that was both simple and profound. He said, you don't need to go anywhere because you're already there. You don't need to become peaceful because peace is your fundamental nature. You don't need to silence the mind because beneath all thoughts, silence already exists. The problem is, we've been taught not to trust this. We've been taught that we always need to be doing something, improving something, fixing something. That resting is laziness. That accepting things as they are is resignation. That letting go of control is weakness. But Watts invites us to consider another possibility, that perhaps control is the illusion, that perhaps constant effort is what's exhausting us, that perhaps our attempt to fix the mind is exactly what's breaking it. Because when you truly observe, when you pay attention without judging, you notice something interesting. Thoughts come and go on their own. You don't consciously summon them, they simply appear. And if you don't interfere, if you don't try to control or stop them, they also disappear on their own, naturally, like clouds crossing the sky. The problem isn't the thoughts. The problem is the person trying to control the thoughts. The problem isn't the mind. The problem is the you that's trying to tame the mind. And here's where the paradox gets even deeper. Because who is this you that's trying to meditate? Who is this you that's trying so hard to achieve peace? When you begin to investigate this question, when you really look within trying to find the meditator, something strange happens. You can't find it. It's like trying to catch your own shadow. Whenever you look, all you find are more thoughts, more sensations, more perceptions. There is no solid, permanent I doing all of this. And perhaps, just perhaps, it's precisely this I that's creating the whole problem. Because if there's no I to meditate, then there's no one who can fail. If there's no self trying to control the mind, then there's no conflict. If there's no meditator separate from meditation, then there's no effort. There is only awareness, only this moment, only the natural flow of experience happening by itself, without anyone needing to manage it. Without anyone needing to improve it, without anyone needing to be in control. But if trying doesn't work, and if the I that's trying may be the very source of the problem, then what's left? If we can't force meditation to happen, and we can't stop trying through effort, then is there any way out of this trap? And here's where Alan Watts offers us an even deeper insight. Because he realized that the problem isn't just the effort. The problem is the fundamental illusion that there's someone separate from experience, someone who needs to control everything, someone who needs to always be improving, always seeking, always dissatisfied with what is. And perhaps true meditation isn't about achieving something. Perhaps it's about realizing that the self that's trying to achieve something is, itself, the barrier. That the thinker is not different from the thoughts. That the observer is not separate from the observed. That the one seeking peace is exactly what's disturbing the peace. But how can you see this? How can you realize that the very I that's trying to meditate may be the obstacle? And more importantly, what happens when this realization emerges? When the self that has always been at the center of everything, the self that has always been in control, reveals itself as being. What exactly? And here's the paradox that Alan Watts discovered, the one that disarms the mind of those who seek with sincerity. The self that tries to silence the thoughts is in itself the noise. The inner voice that whispers, I must meditate better. I need to control my mind. When will I finally succeed? This voice is not the neutral observer. It is the obstacle masquerading as the solution. You may have felt this, perhaps in moments of frustration in front of the cushion. The more you try to calm the mind, the more agitated it becomes. The more you try to observe thoughts without judgment, the more critical the observer becomes. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline and then wondering why the flames grow. But most people never realize that the firefighter himself is the arsonist. Watts called this the problem of the observer. Imagine you're trying to meditate and suddenly you notice, oh, I'm having a thought. This recognition, this awareness, who's doing this? The self. And then you ask yourself, who's observing the observer? And another layer of consciousness emerges, trying to watch the one who's watching. And then another and another and another in an endless loop that never finds a resting place. It's like a dog chasing its own tail, convinced the next spin will finally catch it. This is the fundamental trap of the ego. It disguises itself as the problem solver while perpetuating the problem. It says, you need me to achieve peace, when in reality, it's the very absence of it that reveals the peace that was always there. It's like someone turning on a flashlight to find darkness. The more light they shine, the farther they drift from the answer. The search itself becomes the labyrinth. And this is where most people get lost for years. They read books about meditation, attend retreats, learn sophisticated techniques, all of this while feeding the ego with the illusion of progress. The ego loves the spiritual journey because it offers fertile ground for its survival. Look how dedicated I am. I've been meditating for 5 years. I can sit in silence for an hour. All of this is the self, inflating itself with spiritual achievements, transforming the search for the absence of ego into more fuel for the ego. But what if the answer isn't in observing better, in trying harder, in achieving more? What if this entire structure, the self that meditates, the self that observes, the self that seeks, is precisely what needs to be seen for what it is? A temporary construction, like a cloud passing through the sky. Here's what Watts realized when studying Zen. Nature doesn't struggle. Water flows down the mountainside without hesitation, without planning its route, without judging whether it's flowing correctly. It simply flows. The tree grows without an instruction manual, without an inner critic demanding, I need to grow another inch today. Growth happens, life happens, flow happens. And all of this occurs without a central controller, without a self. Think about this for a moment. Your heart beats right now in this exact instant without you needing to command it. Your lungs breathe, your cells renew themselves, your digestion processes food. All of this happens spontaneously without the interference of conscious thought. And yet, when it comes to the mind, we believe we need a manager. We believe that without the self watching over everything, without the ego controlling every thought, there will be chaos. But this belief is itself the source of chaos. When a cloud passes through the sky, it doesn't cling to its form. It doesn't resist the wind, doesn't try to remain intact, doesn't compare itself with other clouds. It simply dissolves, transforms, follows the natural flow. And the sky? The sky is never stained by the cloud, never altered by it. The cloud comes, the cloud goes, and the sky remains what it always was, vast, open, untouched. The same happens with thoughts. They arise like clouds in the vastness of consciousness. And when there's no self trying to control them, judge them, hold them, or expel them, they simply pass. The problem was never the thoughts. The problem was always the self that believes it needs to do something with them. This may sound like an invitation to chaos, as if we were saying, give up any control and live in pure impulse. But it's not that. It's exactly the opposite. It's recognizing that the kind of control the ego offers is an illusion, and an expensive illusion. It costs us our peace, our presence, our ability to simply be here now without resistance. Think about how many times you've tried to fall asleep, and the harder you tried, the more wide awake you became. And then, the moment you finally gave up, the moment you stopped trying, sleep came. Because sleep isn't something you do. It's something that happens when you stop resisting it. Meditation works the same way. So does peace. So does presence. Watts had a way of explaining this that disarmed even the most entrenched skeptics. You don't arrive at meditation. You're already in it. You never left it. The only problem is that you're trying to get somewhere you already are. It's like someone wearing glasses and asking where their glasses are. The search presupposes the absence of that which is already present. And when this truth really sinks in, not as an intellectual idea, but as a lived perception, something shifts. Not dramatically, not like an explosion of light, but subtly, like the difference between trying to float in water and finally relaxing enough to realize the water always supported you. You stop struggling. And in that stopping, in that letting go, what was impossible becomes natural. But here's where things get really interesting. Because if meditation isn't about effort, and it isn't about observing, and it isn't about controlling, then what is it? What is the true nature of this practice that everyone seeks, but few understand? This is the question that took Alan Watts decades to unravel. And when he finally did, the answer was so simple, it bewildered almost everyone. Because the problem, you see, isn't that meditation is difficult. The problem is that it's too easy. So simple that the mind, trained to complicate, can't believe it. So straightforward that the ego, which feeds on journeys and achievements, rejects it. And it's exactly there in this rejection of simplicity that the true trap lies. Consider this. Have you ever had those rare moments where you were so absorbed in something that you completely forgot yourself? Maybe while watching a sunset or listening to music or lost in a deep conversation. In those moments, there was no self trying to experience the experience. There was only the experience. There was no separation between observer and observed. There was only flow. Those moments didn't happen because you tried. They happened because, for an instant, you stopped trying. The ego relaxed its vigilance, and in that gap, in that small space of effortlessness, reality revealed itself as it always was, unified, fluid, complete. But then thought returns. Ah, what a wonderful moment. And in the instant of that verbalization, of that recognition, separation is reinstated. The self returns to the stage, claiming credit for the experience, wanting to repeat it, wanting to possess it. And the magic dissolves, because the magic only exists when there's no one there to possess it. This is the cycle that keeps most people trapped. They have glimpses of the truth, moments where the veil lifts, but then the ego captures those moments and transforms them into memories, into achievements, into proof of spiritual progress. And so what should be a door becomes another wall. Watts said that understanding this intellectually changes nothing. You can know everything about meditation, have read all the books, have memorized all the teachings, and still be caught in the same trap. Because knowledge about meditation is like a menu in a restaurant. No matter how detailed it is, it won't satisfy your hunger. You need to eat the food. So if intellectual understanding doesn't work, and effort doesn't work, and trying to observe doesn't work, what's left? What remains when you remove all the tools you thought you needed? Only this remains, the present moment, not the concept of the present moment. Not the idea of being present, but presence itself without name, without structure, without a self claiming to be present. It's so obvious it becomes invisible. So close it seems distant. So simple it seems impossible. And that impossibility, that simplicity the mind cannot process, is where Alan Watts discovered the final piece. Because if you can't reach meditation through effort, and you can't reach it through knowledge, then only one possibility remains. A possibility that defies everything we've been taught about achievement, about progress, about how to reach anything in this life. And that possibility has a name. What's called it surrender, but not in the way you imagine. Not as giving up, not as defeat, but as something much deeper, much more radical. Something that, when finally understood, transforms not only your meditation practice, but your very experience of being alive. And now we arrive at the final piece of the puzzle, that revelation that transforms everything you've just understood about the trap of effort and the illusion of the ego. You can intellectually comprehend that forcing the mind doesn't work, and you may even recognize that the I trying to meditate is part of the problem. But a question still lingers in the air, whispering inside you. So what do I do? If I can't force and can't be the ego trying, how exactly do I meditate? And here is the deepest paradox of all, the one that few masters have the courage to reveal because it completely destroys the industry built around meditation. You need to stop meditating to be able to meditate. Let that sink in for a moment. It's not word games. It's not cheap philosophy. It's the simple truth that can dissolve years of frustration in a single moment of clarity. True meditation happens precisely when you abandon the attempt to meditate, when you completely let go of the hidden agenda, when you give up the secret project of becoming more enlightened, more conscious, more anything. It's in that space of total surrender that something extraordinary emerges. Not because you made it happen, but because you finally stopped preventing it. Think of every time you sat down and your mind started to wander. You labeled it as failure, didn't you? Meditation ruined, another session lost. But what if I told you that those very moments you considered failures were actually meditation happening perfectly? Because what is meditation if not consciousness witnessing whatever is present? Not consciousness controlling, shaping, improving what's present. Simply consciousness being conscious. And when your mind wanders and you notice that it wandered, you're not failing at meditation. You're practicing the exact act of consciousness awakening to itself. The fatal mistake was always this, turning meditation into a special state to be achieved rather than recognizing it as the fundamental nature of your own consciousness. You don't need to create consciousness through techniques. You are consciousness. You always were. The attempt to become more conscious through meditation is like trying to become more yourself by pretending to be someone else. See the absolute irony? Every breath you counted thinking you were doing meditation correctly. Every moment you struggled to maintain focus thinking that was progress. You were only reinforcing the illusion of separation, reinforcing the belief that there's a you here who needs to do something to reach a state of consciousness there. But now that you understand this, something fundamental changes. The next time you sit down and your mind wanders, you no longer need to go to war with yourself. You can simply notice. The mind wandered. Consciousness noticed. That's all. That was always all. There's nothing deeper to seek because you're already at maximum depth. You are the depth. When you finally let go of the need for a successful meditation, when you allow your experience to be exactly as it is without trying to fix, improve, or reach through it some idealized future state, something miraculous happens. Not the kind of miracle you expected, not cosmic visions or states of ecstasy, but something infinitely more precious, the simple peace of being, the peace of finally stopping running from yourself, the peace of recognizing that you were never broken, so you never needed to be fixed. The peace of understanding that this relentless search for enlightenment was just another way for the mind to avoid the present moment, to avoid the frightening simplicity of simply existing. Alan Watts used to say that trying to capture meditation through effort is like trying to calm agitated water with your own hands. The more you stir, the more turbulent the water becomes. Clarity only emerges when you stop stirring and allow the water to settle naturally. You don't make the water clear. You simply stop making it murky. And it's exactly like that with your mind. You don't need to make your mind become quiet. It naturally quiets down when you stop agitating it with your efforts to quiet it. You don't need to create inner peace. Peace is already here, obscured only by your frantic search for it. This is the wisdom of Wu Wei, the Taoist concept of effortless action. It's not laziness and it's not passivity. It's the profound understanding that the greatest power comes not from force, but from allowing, from surrender, from aligning with what's already naturally flowing. When you meditate from this place, there is no longer the question, am I doing this right? Because there is no longer a doing, there is only being. And being cannot be done incorrectly because it's not a performance. It's the stage upon which all performances happen. You are this stage. You always have been. Every thought that crosses your mind, every sensation that arises in the body, every emotion that comes and goes, they are like actors entering and exiting the stage. The stage doesn't care about the quality of the performance. The stage simply is undisturbed, present, witnessing everything without judgment. And the extraordinary thing is that you never stop being this stage. You just identified so completely with the actors, with the drama unfolding upon you, that you forgot your true nature. Meditation doesn't transform you into the stage. It simply reminds you that you are never anything else. So whether you're sitting in meditation or walking or washing dishes or doing anything at all, there's really no difference. Because you're not trying to enter some special state called meditation. You're simply resting as yourself, as the awareness that you fundamentally are. And from this perspective, how could you fail? How could water fail to be wet? How could space fail to be vast? You cannot fail to be yourself. And when you finally understand this, deeply, not just as a concept but as lived reality, all the anxiety around meditation crumbles. All the performance pressure evaporates. You are free. Not free to reach elevated states, free from the need to reach them. And this freedom, this liberation from the relentless search, is what the ancient masters were really pointing to when they spoke of enlightenment. Not a mystical superstate reserved for a chosen few, but the simple recognition of what has always been true. You are already complete. You are already whole. You are already home. The search was the only obstacle. The effort was the only barrier. The attempt to become was the only thing preventing you from recognizing that you already are. So the next time you sit down to meditate, remember, you're not trying to get anywhere. You're not trying to become anyone. You're not trying to achieve anything. You're simply allowing awareness to recognize itself. And it does this naturally, spontaneously, effortlessly, the moment you stop trying to force it. This is the secret that transforms everything. This is the insight that liberates. You never failed at meditation. You only succeeded in a way that your ego couldn't recognize. Because the ego only understands achievement, progress, becoming. It cannot comprehend that the greatest accomplishment is recognizing that there is nothing to achieve. And now you know. Now you see. The real reason your meditation doesn't work isn't because you're doing it wrong. It's because the very concept of doing meditation is the problem. The solution isn't to meditate better. It's to stop trying to meditate altogether and simply be. Be what you fundamentally are. Pure awareness, silent presence, the vast space within which all experience arises and passes. You don't need to create this. You don't need to become this. You only need to recognize that this is what you never stopped being. And in that recognition, everything changes. Not because something new was added, but because something false was removed. The false belief that you were less than complete. The false narrative that you needed fixing. The false search for something you never lost. So rest, allow, be, and discover that perfect meditation was happening all along, hidden only by your attempt to force it to happen. This is the final revelation. This is the liberating truth. If these words resonate with you, if something deep within recognizes this truth, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Because the journey of awakening to your true self has only just begun. Each video offers a new opportunity to remember, to recognize, and to return home to the simplicity of your being. Until our next exploration of consciousness, remember, you're already meditating perfectly. You just need to stop trying.